planning the work. This week, I'll look at working the plan. And the first thing I want to say about this is that leadership is more than management. Leadership is more than management. You can manage without leading. Do you follow that? You can manage tasks, you can manage people, you can manage all kinds of stuff without necessarily being a leader or exercising leadership. But you can't lead without managing. If you imagine that you can be an inspiring, visionary role model of a leader and people will follow you and everything will just happen without any sort of planning and any sort of systematic management of stuff, then you're deceiving yourself. Things will fall apart. Leadership is more than management, but without management it's doomed. So I want to just have a quick look at time management. Am I keeping up here? Here we are. Yeah. You probably can't see the words, the small words there, but this, you may have come across this before, the important versus urgent. And you'll see there are 4 squares. On one axis there's the important stuff, on the other axis there's the urgent stuff. And what tends to happen is we as ordinary human beings, when we try to work our plan, we tend to focus always on the urgent stuff. Important and urgent, and not important and urgent, because urgency compels us. They call it the tyranny of the urgent. Actually, I've observed something else in me. I tend to focus on the stuff that's neither important nor urgent, probably at the beginning of my day, just to sort of ease my way into stuff, just to kind of get a few wins under my belt. But actually, it's a complete waste of time. If things are not urgent and they're not important, then we need to stop doing them, really, don't we? But the challenge is to swing our focus up to that area of our plan where there's stuff that is important, like thinking, like being creative, like planning ahead for stuff, but it doesn't have to be done today. That's a real discipline to begin to grow in if you want to be effective at working the plan. So just for a couple of minutes, I'd like you to turn to somebody near you and just in pairs to talk about how you would go about planning to do a home group talk. Imagine you've been asked in 7 days' time by your home group to give a talk about the work of the message. I want you to imagine how you're going to spend the next 7 days. What you're going to do to prioritise the things that need doing. Just make some quick notes, bullet points. We probably won't get all the way through a plan together, but have a bit of a discussion. How you do the important stuff, where would you put the urgent stuff, and then in a couple of minutes we'll get a bit of feedback. So in pairs, please, just for a couple of minutes. It would serve as well to think about actually planning anyway. You'd be surprised how often when you start to think something through you realise actually that doesn't sound too good. If I was to just to say that off the cuff, I'd regret it later. So maybe there are some challenges in there. I'm not going to take feedback and discuss that now because we're a bit short of time. So let me just move on then. We're talking about working the plan. Some people would use a Gantt chart, and Tess is very into Gantt charts, aren't you, Tess? Here's one. If you ever want to see the biggest Gantt chart the world has ever known, then go and see Tess just before June this year when the Urban Hero Awards is nearly ready. And you'll see about 50 sheets of A4 all stuck together with sellotape. With every single detail of that massive event is on there somewhere. And a Gantt chart is a really helpful way of working a plan. Because you've got your time and your tasks on different axes. You can see what has to happen by that date, and if it's that date tomorrow, you've jolly well got to get on with it. And then you're beginning to wonder why you didn't give more time to this before it became urgent, because it's been important all along, so hence the urgent, important stuff. Also, there are things that can't happen until something else happens, and sometimes a critical path analysis is better for us to look at how to work a different sort of plan. Now, again, you can't see the tiny detail on here, but there'll be lots of specific tasks that have to happen in a certain order on this chart. And you can see the thick arrows. Those thick arrows are the order in which those key tasks must take place. And then around the edges, there are other things that could happen just before or just after. And if you looked very closely, you'd see time in terms of days and weeks. That sort of thing just is a real helpful way of you putting your thoughts on paper and maybe sharing it with other people, particularly if you're in a team context. And of course, when we're talking about leadership development, you won't be doing these things on your own. You'll be usually leading a team to work the plan. So I want to talk for the last few minutes about some management components in leadership of teams and some leadership constants. So first of all, management components. Step one, if you're leading a team and it's working the plan time, the first thing I would suggest you do is involve all the members of your team right from the start, because through doing this you're going to get maximum engagement, maximum commitment to the task, ownership. And that's often something that you find is lacking sometime during the planning of something. You, as a leader, you can wonder why not everybody's pulling in the same direction, and it might be your fault for right at the beginning not listening to people's ideas. So the first thing to say in terms of involving all the members of the team is listen, really listen, and affirm people's contribution. Have a discussion about how you'd go about this task together. And if somebody says something that you think is stupid, write it on the whiteboard. Don't comment. You know, it might develop into something else. It might link to another idea. And there's an amazing power in synergy through discussion. So involve all your team. I love The Apprentice. Anyone else like The Apprentice? It's the thing I can't miss on TV. It's got a long-term permanent series record on my V Plus box. And when I've got one, I can't wait to watch it. And the thing that stands out to me about that is the lack of this step one. Have you observed that? When whoever the leader is, 9 times out of 10, or maybe even 10 times out of 10, they become a very authoritarian, bossy, outrageously assertive person. And sometimes their personality seems to change. And I keep shouting at the screen, just get everyone together for 5 or 10 minutes and ask them all to say what they would say, and then discuss it, and then you'll have everybody on board, and then you won't have all these people saying horrible things about you to the camera behind your back the next day. Out of the discussion that you've just had with the team, put the plan together and call it Plan A, and as soon as you've done that, rip it apart. Ask everybody in the team to attack it. What's wrong with this plan? Where's it weak? What are its flaws? And most importantly, what could go wrong? Lots of things could go wrong. Ask what they are in advance, and then agree some contingency plans. And then, once you've done that, produce Plan B. Plan B could just be Plan A with lots of fuzzy edges. If this changes, we'll go here, and if that changes there, we'll do that instead. And then fourthly, management component number 4, delegate. Delegate some of these tasks out. But delegate according to what it is that people like to do, what they're able to do, what they're gifted to do, what their passion is. I remember years ago, a friend of mine in a church, she was mad passionate about evangelism. And every time any evangelistic mission was suggested, she was the first to sign up. And yet she was useless at witnessing to people face to face. She used to get really discouraged. She'd be out on the streets, knocking doors, doing questionnaires, inviting people to events. She just never could connect with anybody face to face. And she was so upset about it because she so wanted to see people saved. She went on a gift discovery course and found out that her main gift was actually administration, organising things. A few months later, she became the organiser of the Alpha Group. And the Alpha Group went from strength to strength under her leadership, and she got so excited because every course people got saved. She got to meet them. Other people did most of the face-to-face stuff, but she was totally involved in it. So do delegate according to what it is that people can do. And then empower, which means support people, but don't interfere. Don't micromanage people. Be there for when they need you. Let them know they're doing well. Let them know that you're available at all times. So those are some management components. I think, oh no, there's the last one. Monitor and review. Throughout the working of the plan, there'll be moments that you planned in at the beginning where you're going to monitor progress and review how things are. And look, do we need to make some changes? We've still got these Plan Bs we could switch to. So do that when you've agreed to do it, and do it with each team member, and do it together as a team as well. Working the plan. Last few minutes, just a few things about leadership constants. And the first of those is visibility. If you're a leader, you're actually a role model, you're not a theorist. Unlike my PE teacher at school, who used to have this saying, don't do as I do, do as I tell you. Which is quite convenient, because he'd send us on a cross-country run, then he would lie on a sun lounger smoking a woodbine for half an hour while we did what he told us to do. Actually, not great leadership. You can't be a leader if you can't stand the limelight. But actually it's quite good if you don't like it very much. But you can't deny the fact that if you're a leader, you're going to be on display all the time. People will be looking at you. People will be analysing. People will be commenting to one another about who you are and how you live. You have to accept that. As Paul said in 1 Corinthians 11, follow me as I follow Christ. Do what I do, and perhaps what I tell you. Because remember, your talk walks and your walk talks, but your walk talks more than your talk walks. Your talk walks, your walk talks, but your walk talks more than your talk walks. So visibility, leadership constant. All the way through this working of the plan, you're a leader, you're on display. How are you coping with things? Secondly, vulnerability. It's helpful for people to realise that their leaders are human, that leaders make mistakes, get upset, fail, but God still uses them to lead. Leadership is a function. It's not a status or a reward or anything. And leaders are just as human as the people who are not leaders. We're all allowed to fail. We're all allowed to make mistakes. God doesn't stop using you when you make a mistake, so he's not going to stop using your leader when she or he makes a mistake. Vulnerability builds bridges to where people are. So leaders build those bridges. Let people see that you're as human as they are. Most British Christians suffer from an acute awareness of their faults and failings. And if their leaders appear to be flawless manifestations of super saintliness, then they're going to feel even worse about themselves. So don't be afraid to let people see your weaknesses. People warm to vulnerability, and God is seen more clearly. As the Bible says, God's power is at work through our weakness. That applies to leaders as much as anybody else. A lovely story from years ago. A friend of mine who's an Anglican minister now, she'd done all her training at college, and she went to be ordained at the cathedral, and the bishop was there ordaining different people for different forms of service in the Anglican Church. And she'd got all dressed up for the occasion. She had a new outfit on. She had a brand new pair of shoes, and she was kneeling down at the front on at the altar rail, and the bishop was going along blessing people and ordaining people. And her friend was telling me how she was standing behind her. And as she knelt down, the bottom of the soles of her shoes were on display. And it had a big label on the bottom. Have you ever noticed sometimes people forget to check the soles of the shoes? And it said, imperfect, stuck on the bottom of the shoes. She'd got them cheap at a market. They were nice shoes, but actually they weren't perfect. And this friend of hers was saying, what a brilliant picture of maybe one of the prerequisites for ministry, to recognise that you're a weak and imperfect person. But when the power of God comes, of course, that weakness is transformed. And that's the last thing I want to mention here, victory. Vulnerable though they are, you see, leaders also need to demonstrate how God's power can help them work with their weaknesses and actually enjoy a degree of victory along the way. And the power of God at work through our weaknesses. In Philippians 4:13, Paul says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So leadership constants. Visibility, you're always on display. Vulnerable, you're a weak person. Don't be afraid to let that show. But victory, model how you can allow the power of God to help you sustain things, help you survive. Maybe that's all sometimes you can do. Work in the plan. Sometimes things go badly wrong. Be the leader that says, let's trust God together to get us through this thing. Let's believe that somewhere in the next phase, day, week, month, there's some victory that will come when we trust in him. So leaders need to demonstrate their attitudes, by their attitudes and actions, that God can turn even the most hopeless looking situation round for his glory. So if you want to do the assignment, then the assignment this week is produce a plan. It doesn't have to be a real one. You can just imagine that you are leading a team to turn some vision into action. That's what these 2 weeks have been about, having vision and then making it all happen. So if you want to do the assignment, there it is. This is going to be posted on the SharePoint hub shortly, and so if you need to check this, have a look for that, and if you can't find it, just email me and I'll email these slides back to you. So thanks for your attention this morning. It's just gone past, so we're going to finish now, and have a good day.